Hi everyone, welcome to Engineer by Design, where today I'm going to take you through a really quick tutorial on how to make a very simple bookend and then eventually 3D print it. So the reason that I kind of wanted to go into this is it's another very simple project that can kind of show some things that we can do in our modeling software, which again is Fusion 360. And it's a very customizable design. So what we can do is we can almost make just the bare bones, which I will do today, and be able to kind of add our own, personalities to it. Like everyone's different, everybody wants their own design, so we can do that down the road. But for right now, we're just going to do something very simple. So I was browsing through Google for some pictures of bookends, and I really like this design. It's very simple. It's basically just an L shape that goes all the way this way. So I just kind of want to explain that a little bit. So the books are resting on this right here, this kind of face. And this face is going to go all the way down, and it's actually sitting normal to this plane. Now you might think that it's just an L shape like this, but what this is it's this face sitting normal to, for the record, means perpendicular. So it's sitting at a 90-degree angle to this base. And this base actually goes all the way this way, and these books actually sit on it, which keeps this very stable, and it keeps the books from falling over this way. And then if I were the person who is using this, I would put a lot more books here so that I could put it against a shelf or something like that. And this can really be illustrated a little bit better with this image, which is just an L shape. So the books actually don't sit on this side here. They sit in here. I don't really like this design as much just because all the books are here, so there is going to be quite a bit of weight to keep it from falling over. But I don't really like that it can fall over right on this line. So we're going to do something a little more similar to this, where we're going to create almost an L shape out here. So the first thing we have to look into is book sizes, but something that can make life a little bit easier, and we'll look at both things right now, is to actually look at dimensions for bookends that are already available online, because they are proven results that should work and will most likely work. So we'll go right here to this link. I just found this on easytobuyusa.com that actually shows their product dimensions, and this is about 6 7/8 high by about 4 and 5, not about, but 4 5/8 of an inch long and 4 inches wide. We're going to use similar dimensions to this. We're going to make them a little bit smaller because the other option is to look at actual book sizes. So if I go to this tab here, I actually looked up on Google and it took me to this blog, which is ironmarkusa.com, which actually illustrates me or shows me and illustrates what standard book sizes for major book genres are, as it says right up here. So in fiction, this is more of a pocketbook dimension, but these are a lot more of the standard sizes. And I was really drawn to this 6 by 9 inches and this 5.5 by 8.5. So the most common, it says here, the more common 6 by 9 in the U.S. trade side mentioned earlier. It's a great pick for any type of fiction. Non-fiction, there are 3 standard sizes, which are right here, and right in the middle is this 6 by 9. For hardcover, it ranges anywhere from 6 by 9 to 8.5 by 11, and on and on and on. You can see a lot of 6 by 9s here, 5 by 8, which is fairly close, and stuff like that. So we will be using the 6 by 9 dimension, and the thickness of the book, like how many pages it has, really doesn't matter. So again, here's another section for average book sizes. So the first thing that is going to be important is we have to figure out what the book is actually going to rest on. This little resting plate right here or here. So one thing that I don't want to do is make it very thick, because I don't want, if a book is going to be sitting there for a while, I don't want the book to deform, because, hey, I think we all got to take care of our books, whether it's something we read all the time or it's just something that sits on the shelf or it's a display piece. There are some people who are book collectors, and they definitely want to keep their books in really good condition, so we don't want to make it something like a 1/4 inch or even like a 1/16 of an inch thick, because it could deform the books. So if we're going to 3D print this, there are settings that you can use in your 3D printing software, which is quality, which talks about how thick the layer height is going to be. I looked at something like 0.1 for the first layer because this is actually about the thickness 0.0039 or 0.004 of a piece of paper. If you look at how thin a piece of paper is, it's between 0.05 and 0.1 millimeters. And my quality for the first layer at least is going to be 0.1 millimeters. Some slicing softwares won't let you adjust the first layer and some do. You just kind of have to understand what your 3D printing software is capable of. But if you want to save time and don't want to go with a 0.1, you can go with a 0.2, which is 0.0078 inches, which is pretty much two pieces of paper sitting on top of each other, or even like a page and a half or a paper and a half. So it's still very thin, and you can very much do 0.2 millimeters. That is not going to be an issue. So with all that being said, let's jump into our 3D modeling software, which is Fusion 360, and we will begin creating this little bookend. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Create tab, and I'm going to create Sketch. And the way that I kind of determine what plane I'm going to be working off of is it really depends on how I'm going to be looking at it from the home feature. And so we're going to create the side view, which is right here. So if you take this and you slice it in half, I want to be looking at it this way. So if my eyes were right here, I want to be looking at it right here, if that makes any sense. Maybe it'll make more sense once I start modeling, but I'm going to hit the front plane, which is the ZX plane, and let's get started. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select my line tool under the Create tab, and I'm going to hover about this center. And I'm just going to start moving out, and I'm going to start placing some dimensions out with not really any care. One thing I'm going to do for this is I'm going to hover to the origin, and I'm going to move out until I see the dotted line. I'm going to be very careful not to hit that check mark, and I'm going to go here. I'm going to hit Escape, and now we have what is a closed sketch, and now we can begin sketching out what we're going to do. So going back to this, we can see these book sizes, which is 6 7/8 tall, which is, pretty good. So we'll go with that. I'm going to hit Sketch Dimension, and I'm going to determine this. So this is about 3 inches. It says 6 7/8. I'm just going to make it 7 inches. And that is good right there. And then I'm going to bring this out. This doesn't really matter as much. It's going to be more of an eyeball thing. So I'll just go with like 3.5, half of this length. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to define this here. I don't really want it to be 0.5. I'm just going to make it 0.2. We'll make it a little bit thicker, 0.375. Perfect. And then what I can do is I can also select this and make it 0.375, or I can go to my constraints and I can hit the equal constraint, and then I will select this and I'll select this, and now they are exactly the same width, and I will hit Escape to get out of that. So I really like that. Now what we're going to do is we are actually going to create the bottom area of what the bookend is going to rest on. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use the 2-point rectangle, and I'm going to zoom in here. I'm going to select here, and I'm going to go all the way out. Again, not really caring what the size is. And now I'm going to go with Sketch Dimension, and I'm going to determine this dimension. This, again, is kind of personal preference. Let's go with 3 inches. I think we'll go a little bit longer just so more books can rest on it, because the more books that rest on it, the less chances has of actually tipping over backwards. And then this is the one that you need to be specific on this one, since I'm going to be going with a 0.1 millimeter thickness. I'm going to select this, bring it out here, and I'm going to do 0.1, and then very important, I'm going to type in mm for millimeters. And as you can see, it actually populates the inches right away, which is 0.4 inches. And if we zoom in really close, there we go, we see that. So we're going to hit Escape. And then what we can do now is, just to make life easier in the future, we're going to select Trim, and we're going to trim this. And as you can see, that actually removes the constraint on these here. So we are going to have to reconstrain them, because if we grab it, I am now able to move this around. So what we're going to have to do is I will move this, and we're going to select the coincident tab, or the coincident under the constraints, and I'm going to, oh, no, that's not going to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select, why isn't that working? Let's try again, coincident. Ah, there we go. I must have just not hit it the first time. To solve, please try revising the dimension. What is going on? Oh, I see why. Okay, so we're gonna hit over here and we're gonna go horizontal slash vertical, and I actually want this to be right above this right here. I don't want to edit this out because I want you guys to be able to see that we're able to solve these issues, and I think this is an important issue to solve. So we're going to hit this horizontal right here, and we're going to make it horizontal to this. So now these are exactly above one another, and if we zoom out, we can see that we have, I'm going to hit escape to get out of this, we have a completely closed sketch. It doesn't look like it's selecting this, but if I zoom in and I hover, it's selecting everything. So, you know, we got to be able to look at all these things and be able to problem solve, because if somebody goes up to us and says, hey, we need you to design this, sometimes, you know, the design is going to be a little complicated. Not to say that this is complicated, but sometimes you just got to be able to figure stuff out on the fly. So next, we are not going to go to solid. I'm going to go back to this, and I'm going to see how thick this is. Excuse me. And we can see that it is 4 inches thick, or 10 centimeters. So I'll go back to Autodesk Fusion. I'm going to hit solid, and I'm going to hit extrude, and this dimension is already selected for us. One thing that I am going to change is I'm going to go to the extrude tab. I'm going to go to the direction option, and I'm going to hit symmetric. And now I can grab this and just kind of push and pull it as much as I want. So one thing that I strongly recommend is if we go here, it gives us the full length of this. Half of this is 2 inches. So something like this is, you know, fairly simple. So we can use this measurement and use half length and have it equal 2, but I want to use this whole length because that's what we're given, and it makes it a little bit less math for us. So we look at this, and this looks pretty nice. So next, so this is actually pretty much done at this point. There's a line right there. What is that line? Oh, it's just a line from the other side. It's so thin. So we are pretty much done. This is all finished, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show another option that we have, which is to create a construction plane in order to make some load-bearing columns, I guess you could call them. But they're essentially going to be some support structures. It's just going to live. It's just going to give your bookend a little bit more character, let's say. So what I'm going to do is I am going to hit escape because I was just zooming around, and I'm going to hit this offset plane. And I'm going to hit this plane, which is going to be the front plane. And this is why it's kind of important, at least for this, to go off the center, which is why we went symmetric when doing the extrusion, is because now it makes it a little bit easier for me to see where to pull this to. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go over here and I'm going to hit this left plane because it'll let me see it in kind of a flat direction. So that's 1 inch, which means there's going to be 2 inches of space. I think that's fine. So we are going to offset this plane 1 inch, hit OK. We're going to zoom around, and we are now going to go to the create and create tab and hit create sketch, and we're going to do it off of this new plane. So now what we're going to do is we're going to create those supporting pillars, and this will bring me into 2 things that you can do, which is to create the supporting pillar, you can kind of just like make these supports like that and connect it up, and that's, you know, that's fine. It works for what we're doing. That is totally fine to do. But it also gives me an opportunity to talk about another feature on Fusion 360, which is projection. Projection is something I actually use quite a lot, especially when I have more complicated designs. I can project a line that is not on our plane that we're using onto our plane that we're using, and I'll explain what that means. So we will go to this create tab, and we will go to the project/include option, and we will hit project. And now what I want to do is I want to just project this line and this line. So what that means is I'm selecting, you can actually see it right here, I'm selecting these lines which are not on our plane that we're editing, and I'm taking them and I'm projecting or putting those lines onto our plane that I can then interact with. Because if I don't do this, it's going to get a lot more complicated. Maybe not a lot more complicated, but it's going to get messy. So since I'm zooming around with this orbit, I'm going to hit escape, and I'm just going to hit OK. And now these are on our sketch plane. I can continue doing this in 3D, but I'm going to go to back. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make a line. We'll just go from here to here. This doesn't matter. Like I said, it's like really aesthetics at this point. So we will maybe move up here, move it over here, and that should be fine. We're going to create another line. Same thing. We're going to go from up here to over here. I could do an offset, but this way I'm getting a little bit more. It's another teaching opportunity to use another constraint. Because if you can see, I can actually bring this here to make it a little more obvious. These are not parallel, but I want them to be parallel. I want it to look like a nice supporting structure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit escape. Under the constraints tab, I'm going to hit the parallel option, and I'm going to select this line and this line. And now, as you can see, they are perfectly parallel, and they will actually move together like this. So something I'm going to do now is I'm going to start defining everything. This is something that's maybe not as important in something like this, but if you're working in something like the manufacturing environment where you are designing things, everything needs dimension, because especially if you are going to be sending stuff out to be machined or ground or whatever, all the dimensions need to be called out. You can't just say like, oh, hey, I need this bar. It's supposed to be 1 inch in diameter. And they say, okay. And you send it over to them, and then they go, wait a minute, what's the length? I mean, they're going to ask that in the first place, but you can't send them an unfinished sketch. Everything has to be defined. So you really want to get into the habit of defining everything. So with the sketch dimension toggled, I'm going to start defining these. 2.06, we'll just call it 2 inches. Define this. 3.87, we'll call it 4. And then with this, I don't have to define it since it's actually parallel. I can just say what the thickness is going to be. 0.42, we'll call it 0.5. Some nice numbers. We're going to hit escape. And now what we're going to do, since this is actually a closed sketch, we're going to hit solid, and we're going to hit extrude. And this time we actually do have to make a selection. So I want to select this and not this here, because this is also considered a closed sketch due to the projection that we made. So I will hit this, and then I will go with, again, I want this to be symmetric, not two sides, symmetric. And I'm going to go whole length again just because it's easiest for me to use. We'll go with 0.5, and I think that should, accidentally selected the wrong one. There we go, I meant to orbit this around. But that looks fine. In fact, I can even go a little smaller because that might be a little too thick. And that looks a lot better. So something that I want to do now is I want to actually put this over here. And instead of creating another offset plane and doing this all over again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to mirror. So it's under the create tab. You hit it to give this little drop down, and I hit the mirror option. So what I'm going to do now, the object type, it has a lot of different types. It kind of auto-populates bodies, which is not what we want to do because we created this as a feature. Now, if you created this support not as a feature and you created it as, here, there's a way to do this, 1 second. If I open up this extrusion, I did the operation join, which means it joined onto this body. See, there's still one body. But I can give a drop down and I can select new body and hit OK. And now there's a second one, which is this here. I don't really want to do that in this case. I'm just going to hit join, and it's just going to be considered a feature down here in this tree. So we'll go back to create and hit mirror. And what we're going to do is we are going to go to this drop down, hit features, and then when it goes to objects, we are going to select this extrusion, which is extrude 2. The mirror plane is going to be, so this is kind of hard to select sometimes. So what you can actually do, you can actually hide the bodies, select this mirror plane, and it kind of auto generates, and then you can populate the bodies back up. You can show them. Computing type, we can just keep as adjust. It's a fairly simple part. We're going to hit OK, and then it automatically populates to this. And here's our really simple bookend, which is pretty much finished. At this point, something I might want to consider is start adding some fillets. So the difficult thing is that since this is so thin, I can't select all of this, because if I go with my 0.02, it's going to give me an error because these are so thin. So what we can do, however, is we can hit fillets, and we can start selecting that. We'll select all these. We'll have to deselect this, and then we'll select all these. And I think that's about everything I wanted to select. Fairly simple stuff. And then we'll hit escape. We'll go with 0.02. Let's see if that'll allow me. And in fact, let's go with 0.03 since it's fairly large. And there we go. This is the bookend that I wanted to make. And that's pretty much it. If you want to kind of see it as a better view of what you'll see in the real world, you can again go to display set. Well, not again, but in the last tutorial I showed you this, but you can go to display settings, visual styles, and hit shaded. And that's pretty much what it'll look like. So, or you can hit Control 4 or Control 6 to bring it back to this. Oh, I hope you enjoyed that. I am going to be saving this, which I'll actually show you how to do that. It's very, very easy. You hit save, and then you can just save it as, I'll just save it as Bookend Etsy, because this is going to be going on my Etsy. So I'm still having some trouble starting it up. I am trying to bring it back up. But whenever I do, I'll post a link in this video description of my last one about this. And yeah, I hope you guys all learned something. If you do want to support me, please like and subscribe, and or head over to my Etsy page where I will be selling these. If you don't want to do that, or you can't afford it, I'm not making any judgments. You are more than welcome to follow my tutorial and make this for yourself. That is totally fine. And hey, I hope you guys learned something out of this. Oh, gosh, I hope you guys got something out of this, and I will see you all in the next video. Thank you so much for stopping by, and have a great day. Bye-bye.